The mystery of Enoch, the man who walked with God. Have you ever read a single verse in the Bible that stopped you in your tracks? A verse so simple yet so powerful that it feels like a doorway into a much bigger story? For me, that verse is Genesis 5:24. Enoch walked with God, then he was no more because God took him. That's it. That's all it says. But those few words open up one of the most mysterious and fascinating stories in all of Scripture. Who was Enoch? Why did God take him without letting him die? And why does this man, mentioned so briefly, carry such weight in biblical prophecy? Today I want to tell you his story, not just the Sunday school version. I want to take you back before Noah's Ark, back before Abraham, back to a time when the world was young, wild, and filled with secrets we can barely imagine. So sit back, let's walk with Enoch. A different kind of man. Picture this. The world is only a few generations old. Adam and Eve's children have spread across the land, building families and cities. Life is simple, yet humanity is already falling into rebellion. And in the middle of this growing darkness, there's a man named Enoch. Genesis tells us he was the seventh generation from Adam. In Jewish tradition, the number 7 symbolizes perfection and completion. Enoch's place in the family line is no coincidence. His life would be a testimony of God's perfect plan. He lived 365 years, and yes, that's a short life compared to others in his family, who lived 700, 800, even 900 years. But the reason Enoch's life was shorter wasn't because of sickness or judgment. It was because God had something extraordinary in store. The man who never died, Genesis, doesn't say much. It simply breaks the pattern of the genealogy. Over and over it says, so-and-so lived this many years, and then he died. But when it comes to Enoch, there's no mention of death. Instead it says, Enoch walked with God, then he was no more because God took him. Imagine that. One day Enoch is there, living, walking, breathing, and the next moment he's gone. No funeral, no grave, just gone. Hebrews 11:5 sheds a little more light. By faith Enoch was taken from this life, so that he did not experience death. He could not be found because God had taken him away. For before he was taken, he was commended as one who pleased God. Enoch's story is one of only 2 in the entire Bible where a person never tasted death. The other is Elijah, who was carried into heaven by a whirlwind in a chariot of fire. Enoch was not just a righteous man, he was a man so close to God that heaven reached down and claimed him. What does walking with God mean? It's easy to skip past that phrase. Enoch walked with God. But this is key to understanding his life. The Hebrew word here paints a picture of deep intimacy and ongoing fellowship. This wasn't a casual belief in God or a once-a-week religious practice. This was daily closeness. Imagine walking side by side with God, talking with him, listening to his heart, being led step by step. In a world that was quickly turning away from God, Enoch lived differently. He wasn't caught up in the corruption of his time. He wasn't distracted by the violence and pride that filled the earth. He stayed close to the Lord, and that closeness marked him for eternity. Enoch, the first prophet of the end times. Now here's something that blew my mind when I first saw it. Jude 1:14-15 tells us that Enoch was a prophet. It says, Enoch, the 7th from Adam, prophesied about them. See, the Lord is coming with thousands upon thousands of his holy ones to judge. Everyone, do you realize what this means? Thousands of years before Christ, thousands of years before the church, before Israel, before Moses even wrote the law, Enoch was preaching about the second coming of Jesus. Let that sink in. In a time when humanity was still new, Enoch was already warning the world of a day when the Lord himself would come with his armies to bring judgment and justice. He saw the end from the beginning. The world before the flood. To understand Enoch's calling, we need to see the world he lived in. Genesis 6 paints a chilling picture. The sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward. when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown. The Book of Enoch gives us even more detail. It tells the story of 200 angels called Watchers who left their place in heaven, took human wives, and produced a race of giants, the Nephilim. These giants filled the earth with violence and sin, corrupting creation itself. It was a time of spiritual chaos. Demonic forces weren't just influencing humanity from the shadows. They were openly rebelling against God's order. The world was spiraling toward destruction, and in that darkness, Enoch stood as a prophet of righteousness. The Book of Enoch. Visions of Heaven. Now let's talk about that mysterious book that bears his name, the Book of Enoch. While it's not part of the Bible as we have it today, it was widely read among the Jews in the early church. In fact, parts of it are quoted in Jude almost word for word. Scholars believe it influenced the writers of the New Testament, especially their understanding of angels, demons, and judgment. In this book, Enoch is taken on a heavenly journey. He sees God's throne. He watches the rebellion of the angels. He's shown the prison where fallen angels are chained until the day of judgment. He learns secrets about creation, astronomy, and the spiritual realm. And above all, he sees visions of the Messiah, the Son of Man, who would come to judge the earth and redeem the righteous. The imagery is breathtaking. In one vision, Enoch describes the throne of God. I saw the Lord of glory, and around him were thousands upon thousands, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The books of judgment were opened. Does that sound familiar? It echoes the book of Revelation almost perfectly. Why the Book of Enoch was controversial. So why isn't this book in the Bible? There are a few reasons. First, while it was highly respected, not all Jewish communities agreed it was inspired scripture. By the time of the early church councils, it wasn't widely circulated outside of Ethiopia, where it's still considered canon by the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. Second, some of its teachings were seen as too mystical or complex for everyday believers. But even so, its influence is undeniable. The apostles read it, early church fathers quoted it, and the Bible itself references its prophecies. Whether or not it's scripture, the Book of Enoch gives us a glimpse into how the early Jews and Christians understood the unseen realm. Enoch and us, a prophetic picture. Now here's where it gets really personal. Enoch's life isn't just an interesting Bible trivia fact. It's a prophetic picture for us today. Think about it. Enoch lived in a world filled with evil, just like ours. He walked with God when few others did. And one day he was caught up to heaven without tasting death. Does that sound familiar? Paul writes in 1 Thessalonians 4:17 that when Christ returns, there will be a generation of believers who are caught up to meet the Lord in the air. Many Christians see Enoch as a foreshadowing of this very event. His story is a reminder that intimacy with God is stronger than death. A personal reflection. When I read Enoch's story, I can't help but imagine what it would have been like. Maybe he was out walking in the fields, praying like he did every day. Maybe he was worshiping God under the stars he created, and suddenly the presence of God surrounded him. And in a heartbeat, he was gone. No fear, no pain, just stepping out of this world and into the glory of God. That's not just a story. That's a destiny God holds out to every one of us, to walk with him so closely that when death comes, it's only a doorway into his presence. The legacy of Enoch. Enoch's story tells us something powerful. God has always had a faithful witness. In Noah's day, it was Noah. In Elijah's time, it was Elijah. In the early church, it was the apostles. And today, it could be you. You might feel like the world is falling apart. Sin seems to be multiplying. Darkness feels overwhelming. But Enoch's life says, it's possible to walk with God in the midst of this. It's possible to live so close to him that the world can't hold you. Closing challenge. So here's my challenge. Don't let Enoch just be a mysterious figure in an ancient story. Let him be an inspiration. The Bible doesn't say he built great cities or performed miracles or led armies. It simply says he walked with God. That's what made him extraordinary. That's what made heaven reach down and bring him home. And maybe, just maybe, God is calling you to walk that closely with Him too. If Enoch's story inspired you to walk closer with God, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful biblical stories.